any questions, please speak to myself or any of the volunteers. Please note that tomorrow, inshallah, at 1 p.m., there will be a Seekers Club hosted by the Dallas Youth Group. The guest speaker will be, of course, the guest alim will, of course, be Sheikh Mehdi Hazari. And, of course, Sheikh Amin Rastani will be there. The topic will be Nahjul Balaga. It will start at 1 p.m. at the DYG Lounge in Carrollton. Before I request the Sheikh to begin his speech, I would like to request that we recite a Surah Fatiha for the marhumin of tonight's program sponsors. For the marhumin of Asif and Zinat Patel and family, for the marhumin of the Kanani family, let us also include our own marhumin and mu'minat and those of the Muslim Ummah. I would like now to request a Sheikh to ascend the member for his speech tonight and ask the brothers and sisters to move as close to the member as possible with the loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
على حب فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. صلى الله عليك يا سيدي ويا مولاي يا رسول الله وعلى أهل بيتك المعصومين الأبرار الميامين المظلومين المضطهدين. السلام عليك وعلى بضعتك المعصومة الصديقة الطاهرة فاطمة. لعن الله الظالمين لكم من الأولين والآخرين. ما خاب والله من تمسك بكم أمنا من لجأ والتجأ إليكم. يا ليتنا فيا ليتنا كنا معكم سادتي فنفوز والله فوزا عظيما. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وليعلم الذين أوتوا العلم أنه الحق من ربك فيؤمنوا به فتخبت له قلوبهم وإن الله لهادي الذين آمنوا إلى صراط مستقيم. آمنا بالله. صدق الله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. والسلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. My dear brothers and sisters, I want to thank you all for having me and thanking Sheikh Amin and Sheikh Mehdi for this very kind invitation. We had been talking about it for some time, and I warned them that just one visit will be enough, and then they'll never have me back again. But it is distinctly my honor and my privilege to be here with all of you. And I don't know about Texas, but I'm a Southerner for sure. I'm from North Carolina. And so it's always nice to come to the southern states. I usually go out to Chicago or to Illinois and to California and these sorts of places. But it's always nice to come to the southern states, which is good. There's a different feel over here, I think. We're very sort of relaxed and chill, I think, in the South, which is nice. And as I thought about what to discuss, I wasn't really quite sure. It's a Friday night. It's already 7:45 here, which means it's 8:45 where I come from, which means in about 45 minutes, I'm usually about ready to go to sleep. I'm sure you've all worked all day and gone to school, and so you're tired. And so I promise I won't take too much of your time. When you see the development of insan, and I'm not talking about what we consider in written history. Everything we see for ourselves, what we learn from, what is documented, is in a record that makes up a written history, and in some cases an oral history, as is the case of the Arabs in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. If you look even beyond that, you can see that humanity, just like any creature, changes over time. I am a scientist by profession, and I'm not going to get into the topic of evolution. I have my own views on that, which some of you might shun and throw things at me for having them. Maybe we can have a discourse on that one day, inshallah. But if you look at evolutionary theory today, I'm just describing to you the theory, that suppose it is true, okay? Suppose that it was true, and that creatures physically changed over many thousands, millions, whatever years, and that the record demonstrated that physically this was happening. Not only was that happening, but there's a record that this not only was the state of that creature that was changing, but that it supported some function. A change in your physical body means nothing if it doesn't result in a functional change, all right? That makes sense. Let me give you an example. If I were to go to the gym and work out for 6 months, all right? 4 days a week, I'm in the gym, I'm lifting weights, I'm like really intense. I drink my protein shake. Some of these young guys may know what I'm talking about. I have a 16-year-old, so I know what that's like. And I'm lifting weights, and then I come home, and one day there's a box in front of our door, and my wife comes, she says, "It's too heavy, can you pick it up?" And I go, and I'm like, "Yeah, I can pick it up." So I go and I try to lift it, and lo and behold, I can't pick it up. And she looks at me and she says, "Well, I thought you were going to the gym for 6 months. Where's the result? Your muscles look bigger, but functionally you haven't changed." Yes? There is no functional result from the physical change. And that's what you see is in evolution, when you talk about evolution, you are talking about a physical change that results in a physiological or a functional change that causes that creature to be able to do what it needs to do, survive, thrive, get its resources, eat, drink, etc., all of these things. So if you look at evolutionary theory, you see that there was a progressive change in creatures. When it comes to human beings, leave the issue of evolution aside and where human beings come from or don't come from. We believe that Allah has created us by saying kun fayakun and has brought about insan as He does everything. The theory itself may be able to show physically how the creature changed. Physically, the body changed, the size of the cranium changed, the size of the brain physically changed, etc., etc. But there is no evidence, there's no explanation for the formation of the mind. Yes? Why is that important? Because the mind is what makes insan into what they are. The human mind is what creates for you this insan. That mind functions just like any other part of the body, okay? So, for example, if I were to go and touch a hot surface, I will feel that heat. Why? Because I have sensors on the tips of my fingers in my skin that tell me that this is hot or that something is cold. And that either move my hand back or this is not so hot that it'll burn me, etc. I have a sensor. And there's a chemical reaction due to neurotransmitters that's going to cause some response inside of me. Your brain is the same way. Your brain has neurotransmitters that are released chemically that cause an electrical signal to sort of transmit from one end of the brain to the other or descend down into the body, and then you have some sort of response. But how does that translate into you having memories, you having ideas, you recognizing faces? How do you take what you see in the world, what you hear in the world, what you experience in the world, and translate its significance using a chemical? Scientifically, there's no sort of explanation. There's no great explanation for it. We know that that's how the brain works. The brain is plastic. The mind is plastic. But there's no explanation as to how that happens. So for us as believers, people who believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we know that this is the gift of God. No. That there is something, the physical body is there, the desire to eat, drink, thrive, have human relationships, etc., which is the nafs, is there. But that there is this aspect of insan that is imperceptible, and that is the ruh, which is the command of Allah. And that is what causes you to be a living, breathing, functioning human being in life, and causes you to be able to do whatever it is you need to do. That mind of yours, that consciousness of yours is a tool. It is just a tool. Just like your hand is a tool, your legs are a tool, it is a tool that functions exactly like any other part of the body. And you use it to advance yourself. You use it to make yourself better. You use it to achieve your basic necessities, and if you are better than an animal, then you do better, and you raise yourself by function of that mind. That's what creates inside of you advancement. Now, when you think about that mind as a tool, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala emphasizes its importance in faith, okay? And Islam is a very unique religion in that in the 6th century, the 7th century, it proposed things that didn't come till much later on in the rest of the world. And you'll say, well, how is that possible? So when people think about the world and the use of our mind, reasoning, they think about what is called the Enlightenment, the period of enlightenment, or the period just before that, which is called the Renaissance. Now, these happened much later, 16th century, 17th century, 18th century, during this period. So we're talking almost 100 years later. 100 years later, this is now happening. 1,000 years later, excuse me, not 100, 1,000 years later. So why did this happen? We know that religion always proposed in those days that you follow blindly, that you're told to do something, you do it. Even if you don't understand it, you should do it. Indeed, our religion tells you the same thing. Obey Allah, even if you don't understand why Allah is telling you to do so. But then our religion says apply your reasoning to it. What I want to discuss with you tonight is how that happens. How is it that you apply your reasoning to your religion? In what manner is it sort of formulated? And what are sort of the boundaries of you being able to apply your reasoning? And why is it that it is so important in your quest to improve faith? And that's why the Holy Quran, it says, وَمَا كَانَ لِنَفْسٍ أَن تُؤْمِنَ إِلَّا بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ وَيَجْعَلُ الرِّجْسَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ لَا يَعْقِلُونَ. The ayah is very clear. It says, no nafs, no person can believe except by the permission of God. People believe because God has given us the permission to believe. He allows it to happen. But then what does he say? He says, وَيَجْعَلُ الرِّجْسَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ لَا يَعْقِلُونَ. He puts impurity, rijs can be translated as impurity. He puts impurity on those people who do what? Who don't apply their mind. Now, it is a very strange, complex ayah. So, I don't know if you picked up on the juxtaposition here, but if it is faith that is acquired only by the permission of God, meaning what? You can't believe unless God says, okay, go ahead and believe. And what does our mind have to do with all of that? Your mind is telling you to think freely, no? Your mind is telling you to acquire information and act on that information. So why do we have to wait for God's permission to happen? Yes? And I'm going to, inshallah, try to explain that to you. And the mind is extremely, extremely powerful. And it is extremely necessary. But it is also extremely limited. Extremely limited. Let me give you an example. Well, let me ask you a question. What's for dinner tonight? What, nobody knows what's for dinner tonight? What's for dinner tonight? Biryani? I see most of you are from India, Pakistan, so. Nihari. Nihari ke saath naan bhi chahiye, chawal bhi chahiye, dal ki bhi zarurat hai na? So you have nihari, you have your roti, you have your naan, whatever it is that you're eating with it. If you have a table in the back with the nihari on it, yes, and I say, go take some nihari, you go see the nihari, you can touch it, you can grab it with your hand, and you can extend your hand to your mouth to begin the first of like 1,000 bites, yes? And you eat. Now let's say I tell Brother Michael that Michael's not desi, so he looks Lebanese. They don't eat nihari. Although my children, they eat nihari. My children are half Lebanese. So let's say I tell Michael, I say, hey, look, take the nihari, go run, go a mile away, okay? Take the nihari, don't throw it away. It's good nihari, yes? Take it, pack it up, take it a mile away. And then I come to all of you again and I say, go see the nihari and go take some. What will you do? You'll say, I don't see the nihari. Where's the nihari? There's no nihari there. Did it stop existing? Did the nihari stop existing? No, it didn't stop existing. It's still there. It's just it's been removed away from your eyesight such that the limit of your eyesight has been exceeded. That's all. Did it stop existing? No, it's still there. It's just that you can't sense it. Okay? Let me give you an example. In the time of Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salatu was-salam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. There was a man named Ibn Abil Awja. He was a well-known atheist, and he had the habit of ridiculing believers. So one year, it's reported he went for Hajj, well, meaning he accompanied people who were going for Hajj. He was an atheist, so he didn't believe. But he saw these people doing tawaf of the Kaaba, doing the sa'i, doing all of these things, the taqsir, and etc. And some of his companions, he's saying, look at these people. They're not even worthy of being called human. Human mind is so powerful. So he continuously was denigrating that how can you do this? So he came in front of Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salatu was-salam, Imam al-Sadiq, and he posed this, that how is it they come like cattle, they are doing these rituals which are meaningless. This is not worthy of being a human being. Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salatu was-salam, he says, the owner of the house, the Lord of the world, the creator of everything, he is the one who has obligated this on us. We owe obedience to him, and that's why we come. He tells us to do tawaf, we do tawaf. He tells us to do sa'i, we do sa'i. He tells us to do etc., pray, we do it. It is our obligation to obey him. He is the master. So he says, how is it then that you can obey this all-powerful creator who you cannot see? How do you know he's even there? This is a long discourse he has. I'll tell you one part of it. And Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salatu was-salam, he says to him, let me ask you a question. Let's say you have a bag of jewels, and you're walking with those bag of jewels, and somebody comes and asks you for dinar. And you say, no, this bag doesn't have dinar in it, it has jewels. He says, what if you don't know what the dinar looks like? What if you don't know what its description is, its physical appearance is? He says, will you be able to describe it just because you can't see it? He says, no, if I can't see it, I can't describe it. He says, then how do you know that God doesn't exist? You cannot see him. You cannot see him. Imam as-Sadiq alayhi salam, he says, if you're right, if you are correct, then both of us are going to be in the same position when we die. If you are correct, there's no God, we will die, there will be darkness, we will both be in the same state. But he says, if I am right, then you are at a loss. If I am correct that you must believe in God, that you must answer to that God, you must obey him, and that there will be judgment for you, then when I go into the grave, I will be secure and you will be in a great state of difficulty, facing the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They say Ibn Abil Awja, he never became a Muslim, never accepted. Some of his companions who were sitting there, they believed, but he did not. He never accepted. And you see that insan is this way. We are so restricted by what we can feel, what we can touch, what we can sense, and that is the basis for our knowledge. And indeed, that's the case. That is the case. If I were to give you an example, let me give you a simple example. If there's a glass of water in front of you, yes, and a drop of blood, you see it fall into that glass of water. Can you drink that glass of water? You cannot. You saw it. But let's say there's a glass of water in front of you, and you wake up from sleep and you come into the kitchen, there's a glass of water in front of you, and you've got this faint thought in your mind, you're not sure if it's true or not, that a drop of water fell into it. You didn't see it happen, right? You didn't see it happen, but you have this thought, you have this doubt inside of your mind that did it happen or did it not happen? Can you drink that water? You can, because your certainty is that it is pure. And unless that certainty is removed by another certainty that the drop of blood fell in and you saw it happen, you can consume it. Doubt does not remove certainty. And that's why Islam says, rely on your physical senses, but that there is a limit. Understand that there is a limit to your mind and to those physical senses. And that is what the believer carries with them. And we struggle. We struggle because we have habits that cause our thinking to get manipulated, cause our thinking to change. One of the things we do is we have a tendency to overgeneralize, okay? We're very quick to generalize everything. We don't look at each situation specifically, analyzing its details, its specifics, and acting with respect to that. That causes our thinking, our mind, our reasoning to be somewhat distorted or skewed. We are also polarized in our thinking. Polarized thinking is when you think about something as being all or nothing. That's it. Meaning, let's say somebody comes, they were your friend, they did one small thing that annoyed you, you wrote them off, and now they're your enemy. You have nothing to do with them. This sort of thinking that is all or nothing, extreme thinking, is not good. It prevents the mind from probing, from asking questions that you need to ask. There's another thing that human beings do. It's called catastrophizing. Catastrophizing means that every little thing that happens to me, I consider it to be negative, or that there's potential negativity coming towards me. That I'm facing something that is uncertain, and that almost certainly it's going to harm me. It's going to cause me problems. We also, my dear brothers and sisters, our mind is such that we're looking for that immediate gratification. It's strange, because I'm at the hotel nearby, and I'm standing there waiting for the elevator to come, and a father and his son come. And I'm not trying to eavesdrop, but they were standing right next to me, so I happened to hear their conversation. The father says to the son, he says, "Why do you want to pay $2 for a bag this big of chips?" Okay, this big. It's right there. He says, when Walmart is on the street next to the hotel, 2 seconds away, and you can get a full-size, oversized bag for 50 cents more, or something like that, for the same price. You know what the son's answer was? This is exactly what he said. He said, because it's right in front of me. Because it's right in front of me. That's why. This is insan's tendency. You know, they did, I don't know how many of you have heard of the marshmallow experiment. How many of you have heard of the marshmallow experiment? No? Marshmallow experiment is when they took a bunch of kids, little kids, I don't know, first graders, kindergartners. They brought them into a room. They were watching them with cameras. They said to them, here's a little bowl of and I'm simplifying it, with 2 marshmallows or whatever. They said, you can either consume it now or take the chance that in an hour, you'll get 5 marshmallows. How many of them you think did it? Many of them did. Many of them said, no, we don't want the 2, we'll stick with the 5, but many couldn't wait. They wanted instant gratification. They wanted that now. Because to know that the 5 are coming later on is not certain. What could happen? The person could eat the 5 marshmallows themselves, right? You don't know. And so you go into this, and they tracked these kids over a long period of time. They prospectively looked at them, and you know what they determined? They determined that the kids who were able to be patient and wait for the 5 marshmallows to come later on, even though they couldn't see them, they were more successful in life. They achieved more of their goals. Why? Because they didn't rely on instant gratification, let me take this now. They waited and persevered. Think about Jannah that is waiting for you, huh? Think about Jannah, how far away that is from you. And Allah is promising you that do what you're supposed to do now, that Jannah is waiting for you over there, no? Now imagine how hard is it for us to be motivated. How difficult it is for the mind to work for something you cannot see. The final thing that shapes our thinking, or maybe even distorts our thinking, sometimes is emotion. Yes? And emotion is an integral part of being mu'min. It's part of being human, but it is an important part of being mu'min as well. The ayah of the Holy Quran, it speaks to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. What does it say? It says, يا أيها الرسول لا يحزنك الذين يسارعون في الكفر من الذين قالوا آمنا بأفواههم ما ليس في قلوبهم. These are the people who, O Rasul, don't be saddened. يا أيها الرسول لا يحزنك الذين يسارعون في الكفر. Don't be saddened by those people who are hell-bent quickly going towards disbelief. Now, why is it saying don't be sad? Don't be saddened by them. Sadness is an emotion. It is an emotion. It causes you to feel something, yes? And it is as much as reasoning a part of human beings. You have to have these 2 components that are there, constantly working together. Now, one will say, well, why? Why is that the case? Why is the mind by itself not enough? Why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and only He knows what He does and how He creates, why did He make this insan with these 2 faculties, these 2 powers, let's say, combined into one? If I were to ask you and say, let me present to you an insan who is all mind, all cognition, all reasoning, no emotion, would you say that that's a normal human being? You will not. On the other hand, let's say I said that there was a human being who was all emotion, no reasoning. Would that be a complete human being? No. It is the interaction of these 2 things that always come together. And that's why when you see insan, the most powerful human beings are the ones who blend these 2 things together, who bring mind and emotion together. And Quran is constantly talking about it. Quran constantly describes the believers and says, لا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون. There's no fear on them, and they will not be sad. Why? Fear exists inside of insan because of uncertainty. You fear that which you don't know in front of you. What you cannot see is coming. And why are you sad? You feel sadness because you've lost something. Something's been taken away from you. And in this sense, you put these 2 things together, and you blend them together, and you make them into a powerful machine. And indeed, they are a powerful machine. They are extremely powerful. What's for dessert tonight? That's why I said that after this weekend, no one's going to call me, yes? Because I'm asking about nihari, Tell me there's like gulab jamun or something tonight, no? Yes? Kheer? Maybe kheer. Kheer is like the standard always, especially in Desi crowd. So let's say you've got the world's best kheer here tonight, and you've made a whole lot of it. Everybody is going to get 2 bowls at least, okay? Everyone gets 2 bowls, you eat it, and what does it do inside of you? It creates the emotion of happiness, okay? You come next week, okay, and Sheikh Mehdi, the other Sheikh Mehdi, he tells, I know he's the resident alim, right? So he's the one who says, bring that kheer again. This is all hypothetical, by the way. He has nothing to do with this. He says, bring that kheer again. It was amazing. I didn't get a chance to eat it that other night. You bring that same kheer again, it's good. You eat it again. He eats it. Everyone gets the 2 bowls. Your emotions are what? Happy. You get this profound happiness in it. You do this over and over, and you don't get sick of this kheer because this kheer is really good. Every time you see that kheer, what will happen to you? You will be reminded of what? An emotion that is pleasurable to you, that is reinforced inside of you, something that is ostensibly good, no? And so what are you going to want to do? Do it over again, and do it over again, and do it over again. That's what emotions do. Emotions are what are called projective. They are projective aspects to a human being. Meaning, a good emotion projects on you something that you want to do in the future. Whereas a bad emotion does what? It feels painful, sorrowful, hurtful, that you don't want. But in the same sense, it causes the mind to wake up, right? Why? Because it causes you either to pursue something or withdraw from something. That's the power of your emotion. It will tell you that. Now, what if you experience something by which it's so fleeting, so short, but the emotion was very good? You experience something short-lived, doesn't last more than 2 minutes, the emotion for it is very positive, but you never experience it again. Will you have a strong draw to that? Maybe you will, but chances are it won't be as strong as if you had experienced that same strong emotion for a longer period of time or repeatedly over and over, over and over, over and over. Yes? And what do? We take that emotion and we assign a meaning to it. We assign some significance to it, whether that significance is true or not. How many people have heard of the lottery effect? Anyone heard of the lottery effect? No? The lottery effect, well, who plays lottery here? See, trick question. Someone was like this and quickly put their hand down. No. If theoretically there was a halal lottery, and we played lottery, okay, which let's not even go there. They say people who play lottery, how much chance do they have to win? Right? Like less than 1%. So small, so minuscule. But go and ask that person when they're standing there in the 7-Eleven saying, give me one of the draw 5 or draw 7 or whatever it's called. Ask them how they feel in that moment when they're buying that lottery ticket. You think they know that they have like less than a 0.00005% chance to win? They know. They know that the chance of winning is so minuscule, so small, that, frogs will probably fly before they win the lottery. But still, ask them what they're feeling when they're buying that lottery ticket. Excitement. They're excited. They're excited by the fact that potentially they could win $1 billion, even though they know it's never going to happen. It's probably never going to happen. This is called the lottery effect. It's your emotion telling you, making significance for you, projecting for you what you should feel. And what it does is, it takes the mind and either strengthens the reasoning behind it, or takes it and dilutes the reasoning behind it. A person who buys a lottery ticket saying, oh, I love the feeling of excitement that I could potentially win $1 billion when I have less than 1% chance of doing so, is someone who is what? Reasonable? No, they're not reasonable. Because you're betting, essentially, you are in fact betting on something that is less than 1%. But if you can apply that emotion such that your mind becomes strong, your mind and reasoning becomes accurate, then imagine the power of these two things together. I hope you're seeing where I'm going with this. The Quran, the history, is replete with information, with stories, with examples of those chosen by Allah who are the smartest of the smart, most knowledgeable, most complete in their obedience to God, but who have emotion. And the power of that emotion is something that we cannot sort of overemphasize. My dear brothers and sisters, today, why is there Majlis al-Hussein? Why is there Majlis al-Hussein today? Is it sheerly because you're learning about Quran or Hadith or the Seerah of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam? Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa alihi. Is not. Because every Majlis of al-Hussein, what do? You combine it with the emotion. You combine it with the strength of your emotion. And if you have only emotion, and you are not learning from the legacy of Imam Hussein, then you have to ask the question, are we doing what Abu Abdullah wanted us? And if you are only learning, meaning the Quran, the Seerah, that's good, no one's saying no, because we want to learn, but you're missing out on the emotion, then you are forgetting about one important component that the Ahl al-Bayt described, and that is the tear that falls for al-Hussein. That tear that falls for al-Hussein alayhi salam does what to your mind? It propels you to want to be like him. It propels your reasoning to act like him. It gives you the strength and resolve to act in difficult moments just like he did. That's why you see that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. He points to what the mind actually is, what reasoning actually is. And before I go there, let me mention to you something. That we describe emotion as being weakness sometimes, particularly when we ascribe it to women. We say, oh, well, she's emotional. That means she can't think. Or even a man is emotional and he can't think. Indeed, there are moments in which emotion overtake rationality or reasoning, and they cause the person not to process information the way they should and act in the manner that results in the best sort of outcome. However, Nature. How many of you know the Nature magazine? It's the top biomedical biosciences journal in the world. Highest impact factor. Nature published a study in which they followed men and women throughout the day and looked at their emotions up and down, up and down. And you know what they found? They found that there was no difference between them. There was no difference. Men had emotional upheaval and they had emotional sort of plateau. Women had the same, up and down. No difference. Moreover, they looked at women. Now what's the contention? Well, the woman is emotional because of her hormones, because she has these fluctuations in hormones. Indeed, there is a physiologic effect from hormones in the body of the woman and in the body of the man. But you know what they found? They found women who are taking the regular birth control pills that regulate their hormones. And in fact, instead of taking the inactive pill, I don't know if the men know this, the inactive pill, they continue with the active and they do not have their monthly cycle. These women, their emotions were exactly the same as a woman who was not taking the pill. There was no difference. Meaning the reproductive cycle, the hormone cycle of a woman had nothing to do with their emotions in this study. Okay? So why? Why do we see these differences? Well, because we have made society into that. We have built a system in which we have told people, this is what you are, you fit into this box, and that's what you are. Meanwhile, Allah has said, I'm the creator. I gave each insan a mind. I gave each insan emotions. I gave each insan ability, capability, drive, potential. Who are you to assign them to a box? I will tell you where they should and shouldn't be. And tomorrow, inshallah, we'll finish this discussion. But you see that when it comes to aql, when it comes to the mind, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam points. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. He points to one thing, and he says the aql is comprised of three parts, or aql is comprised of three parts. Whoever does not have of it has no aql. So it is reported, he says, that the first thing He says, حسن الطاعة لله. حسن المعرفة بالله. First thing, you must have understanding of your Lord. You want to know what reasoning and mind are? Know what your Lord is. Know who your Lord is. We can spend our lifetime on this and not fully understand and fathom our Allah. But in the process of knowing our Lord, what do we also have to know? Ourselves. If we don't know ourselves in this journey, then how can we know our Lord at the same time? Recognizing His supremacy is simultaneously the act of recognizing our own lowliness. Recognizing that His hand is the one that gives to us is simultaneously to recognize that we are in need. Otherwise, we have nothing. And on and on. The second thing, he says, after understanding is حسن الطاعة بالله, or حسن الطاعة له. You must obey Him. Now see the beauty of this saying of the Prophet. He says, recognize, understand your Lord, and then obey Him. The minute he says you have to obey Him, what does it do? It creates a limit for your mind. It does not allow the mind to go unrestricted. Today, our struggle is that we want the mind to be free. We want to do whatever we want to do. And Allah says, yes, use your mind, reason, apply that reasoning, but recognize that there is a limit for you. And that boundary is the obedience of God. If the application of your reasoning takes you outside the obedience of Allah, then you have corrupted the mind. You have not used it in the way that you should. And you see, there are many examples of this. So many examples of how insan has flourished in many different ways, and yet you see the results are catastrophic. You'll say, well, how's that possible? How many of you have taken antibiotics? This is like an interactive majlis, right? You guys do these here? No, not really. Michael says no, not really. Interactive majlis, okay. People have taken antibiotics. Antibiotics are good, right? Yeah, they help you. But when they created antibiotics, when they developed them, whoever they engineered them, they came up with them, they've improved them over time to time. What else have they done at the same time? They have created resistance. They've created, and not just resistance, I mean, these things, you drop a nuclear bomb on that bacterium, it'll still be alive, right? I mean, they're vancomycin resistant. I mean, you can throw anything at them, they will resist it. The third, fourth generation of that antibiotic, they'll be resistant against it. Your mind, the mind of the scientist, whoever developed the antibiotic, was to create. But could he see the consequences down the road 50, 60 years? No, he couldn't. And I'm not saying that antibiotics are bad. Don't take me wrong. I'm just telling you the limits of the mind. Same thing. My dear brothers and sisters, the theory of relativity, the theory of understanding how our world functions physically, how the universe functions physically, how energy moves through the system of our world. And yet, what happened in the Second World War? The dropping of the atomic bomb killed how many millions of people, no? This is a result of human ingenuity, is it not? Yes, human evil, no question. The eradication of people, no question. But it is the result of human ingenuity. If someone had not come up with that scientific theory, would all those million people have died? They would not have. This is why, what does God say? Obey, obey. Rasulullah is saying, understand your Lord and understand that He has created a boundary. The minute you come out of that boundary, whether it is because of your ego, because you have put yourself in a position you should not be, you are going to create trouble. The last thing Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam is reported to have said, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad, is that you must have husn as-sabr li amrih. You must be patient on the command of God. This one is a hard one. Why? Because sabr is what? Sabr, as Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu was-salam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. It is three things. It is three things. The lowest form is the sabr on the difficulties and trials, the pains of life that come. That is the lowest. And that is the one where, my dear brothers and sisters, what happens to you? When trial, difficulty, pain comes in your life, what's the first thing that gets activated? Your emotion. Your emotion gets activated. And if your emotion gets activated in such a manner that it is not being checked by your mind, what happens to you? You can drift, no? For example, God forbid, may it not happen, your child gets in trouble. Your child gets sick. Something happens. Your emotions will be activated. You will want to do something to relieve your child of whatever they're undergoing. And even though your mind is telling you, don't do something haram, your emotions will be so activated, so beyond where they should be, that what will happen? God forbid, you will do something you're not supposed to do. Yes? That's why you control and you bring it back into control with your mind. And you combine these two things together. You bring these two things together. So the first thing, the sabr, is on the bala, the difficulty that comes. Imam Ali alayhi salam, he says the second thing, and just I ask you that when you hear these words from me, think about in your own life on a day-to-day basis, how much of this we go through. Ask yourself in a moment of upheaval, what do you feel like? Take a second and ask yourself, is this my emotion driving me, or is this my mind telling me what to do? I need both. Because yes, if something bad happens to your child, you want to feel emotion. You don't want to be emotionless. Because without emotion, what will happen? I said to you, emotions are projective. They project you to achieve some goal. They give you motivation to act. But then it has to be combined with mind to do what? To bring balance to it, to keep it within its limit. So now the second thing, Amir al-Mu'mineen, he says the second type of sabr that is most difficult is in the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What time is Fajr over here? Like 6 o'clock, right? That's not bad. But imagine in the summer when it's like 3:30 in the morning, you have to get up and Ramadan is now moving, so that's not bad. Your alarm clock goes off and you have to wake up for Salat al-Fajr, and Shaitan is saying, just go back to sleep. Just go back to sleep. That requires patience, yes? And what is causing you to want to go back to sleep? Pleasure, is it not? That sleepy eye in the middle of the night, closing it and going back to sleep into a deep sleep, is that not the most pleasing thing? You know which is the best sleep? You'll all agree. When you've come back from the east and you've taken like a 20-hour flight, you finally get home, and you're back home after flying 20 hours, and you get into your bed and you sleep like you've never slept before, no? So pleasing, that you need patience to wake up for Salat al-Fajr, no? Your mind will tell you, I have to obey God, let me get up. Let me get up and pray. On the obedience of Allah. Number 3, Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wassalam. He says that the most difficult type of patience is the patience that comes when Shaitan is trying to tell you to do something haram against the command of God and you resist. Again, emotion is a powerful motivator for us to do things. Very powerful. And it is the reasoning of the mind that tells the mu'min, no, come back. Come back to it. Come back and humble yourself in front of what God has told you to do. The ayah I recited for you in the beginning. What does it say? وَلِيَعْلَمَ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْعِلْمَ أَنَّهُ الْحَقُّ مِنْ رَبِّكَ فَيُؤْمِنُ بِهِ فَتُخْبِتَ لَهُ قُلُوبُهُمْ. He says, let those who have been given, bestowed knowledge know. Those who have been given knowledge, let them know that this is the truth from their Lord. And what do? As soon as they recognize that truth, they believe in it, and their hearts become humble to it. That is the power of the mind, is that it sees the truth and it humbles itself. That is the scope of your reasoning. That is the scope of how you apply emotion to your reasoning. And this is extremely important to understand, because my dear brothers and sisters, very quickly, one or the other, mind or emotion, can go astray. And it can be hijacked. It can be taken control of very, very easily. Today, how many movements have we seen in which emotion is the driving force of that movement? And that high emotion in the beginning is very powerful. But how quickly that emotion has to come down, because you cannot sustain high amounts of emotion. You can't. It's impossible. You cannot remain up here with your high emotion. It has to come down. So if a movement is driven solely by emotion, will it last? It will likely not last, or it will not have the vigor that it had in the beginning. That's why you combine the two. Moreover, you have to ensure mentally, using your reasoning, that anything that you're going to do, that it's based on the right foundation and it's not hijacked from you, is not taken from you. And you'll say, well, you're going to ask this question, why are you going through this big, long discussion on mind and emotion? Because, my dear brothers and sisters, it is upon all of us today to uphold the mission of Islam. Uphold the mission of truth, justice, to fight oppression. Whether that is in Palestine, what's happening to them, whether that is in Parachinar, where where Shias are being killed, anywhere, whether it is attacks happening in the south of Lebanon, innocent people dying there, we have the responsibility to act, to speak up, to not allow oppression to go unchecked, and to not allow someone to rob us of our voice, because it can happen very quickly. I will tell you one story and I will go to the end, inshallah. All of you are a unit of change. Don't ever doubt that. There's no one of you who cannot change the world in which you live. It's just each one of us has to tap into the potential of mind and emotion together to do so. After the events of Karbala, you all know that there were some people who turned to Muhammad al-Hanafiyyah, the half-brother of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. And the Kaysaniya are there, it's mentioned, etc. There is some history there. I won't go into that. He had a son. His son's name was Abdullah. So his name was Abdullah ibn Muhammad al-Hanafiyyah. Abdullah, in that time, when the Banu Umayyah were still ruling, still had control, Abdullah was constantly trying to garner support to overthrow them. Because he knew they were despotic, they were evil, they didn't represent Islam. His intentions were good. And he had gone and he was trying to rally support. Now, the history describes that Abdullah ibn Muhammad al-Hanafiyyah, he goes to a place called Hamima. In Hamima, which is today in Jordan somewhere. He went there. The Banu Umayyah got word that this is a guy who's actively working to undermine them, to overthrow them, that he's plotting and planning and he's doing things. Sulaiman ibn Abdul Malik, he sends an emissary, he sends an agent, and they poison him. They poison Abdullah ibn Muhammad al-Hanafiyyah. Now remember, this is the grandson of Amir al-Mu'mineen. He's been poisoned. As he's dying, okay? As he's dying, they say in the history he's collected lots and lots of information. He was a smart guy. He takes that information, all of it containing the routes of the Banu Umayyah's trade, where their garrisons are, where their finances are. He had made a full portfolio. He had a whole, like a manual on their weaknesses, on how to overthrow them, how to attack them, how it is that they would eventually remove this disease that was Banu Umayyah from the Muslim world. He had all this information compiled. As soon as he found out that he was sick and dying, he took that information and he gave it to a man named Muhammad ibn Ali ibn Abdullah ibn al-Abbas. Did you get that? Muhammad ibn Ali ibn Abdullah ibn al-Abbas. Abdullah ibn al-Abbas was who? The student of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Yes? He is the cousin of Rasulullah, cousin of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Al-Abbas is the uncle of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. So now, he gives this book to the grandson of Abdullah ibn Abbas, Muhammad ibn Ali. He gives it to him, he says, look, all this information is in here against the Banu Umayyah, you can use it. Muhammad ibn Ali ibn Abdullah ibn al-Abbas, he takes this and he gives it to his children. Who are his children? Anyone know? Ibrahim Imam, As-Safah, Mansur al-Dawaniqi. Who are these three? These are the starters of the Banu Abbas, the Abbasid regime. Who do what? Who exact tyranny and oppression on Ahl al-Bayt and on the Imams. See? He takes this information, he's used his mind, he's gathered it, he's done what he's supposed to, but what did he do at the end? Misappropriated it. Put it in the wrong place. That was used by the Banu Abbas to overthrow who? Banu Umayyah. Banu Abbas take control, and now what happens? The most difficult times on Al Muhammad comes. And the difficult times in the time of Banu Abbas on Al Muhammad was there. Very, very severe. Very severe. Two of our Imams did not make it past the age of 27. Imam al-Jawad, 27. Imam al-Askari, 25. Alayhim as-salam. Yes? So you can see how reasoning, mind, thinking, good, but very quickly can go out of control. That's why you bind yourself with limits. You act with precaution. You see where you're going. You try to understand who you are, what you are in this grand system that Allah has created for you. And that's why even when we take the name of Fatimah al-Zahra alayha salatu wassalam, we salawat ala Muhammadin wa ala Muhammad. We are evoking emotion because she is our mother. She is the mother of our Imams, she is the mother of the Sada, indeed. But she is our mother because we feel pain of her loss like she is our mother, like it is our actual mother. And because not only does that emotion conjure up something familiar inside of us, but we recognize her position in terms of knowledge. And that is the sermon of Fadak in front of us. That it is a compendium of knowledge that describes God's religion, obligation, our own deficiencies. And we will talk about this tomorrow a little bit more. And it describes what it is we should do. And if anything, I ask you, read it and consider the components of your mind, your reasoning, and your emotions. How she taps into both of these aspects when she's describing. When she speaks about her father, she speaks with emotion, that he was my father, he was not one of your men. He was my father. When she speaks about those things, when she talks about society, about responsibility, about how Islam has been placed as a trust on our shoulders to bring it to others, she is speaking about reasoning, applying an understanding of our religion. And that's why what was done to her and how she was treated after the demise of Rasulullah shows those who are with the truth and those who are not with the truth. Those who have personal motives and who are driven by those motives, and those who have sacrificed everything for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's related that Fatimah al-Zahra, the daughter of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, she says, لما نزلت الآية لا تجعلوا دعاء الرسول بينكم كدعاء بعضكم بعضا. When the ayah of the Holy Quran was revealed that do not make your discourse, your conversation, your speech with Rasulullah like you speak to each other. كنت أقول له يا رسول الله. Fatimah al-Zahra, she says that when this verse came down, I would go to him and I will call him Ya Rasulallah. They say in the riwayah that Fatima says, فَإِنَّهُ أَعْرَضَ عَنِّي. He did not answer me. He did not reply to me when I said Ya Rasulallah. Finally, he said to me, Ya bunayya ya Fatima, innaha lam tanzil fiki, wala fi ahlik. It did not come down. This verse was not revealed for you. It was not revealed for your family. Walakin ya bunayya ya Fatima, quli ya Abba. O Fatima, instead call me my father, Ya Abba. My dear brothers and sisters, in the last moment of Rasulullah's life, he is lying on his deathbed. He is falling unconscious. and reawaking from moment to moment. Amir al-Mu'mineen is lying on the bed, holding the head of Rasulullah in his lap. The Rawi, he says that Amir al-Mu'mineen, he records that Rasulullah opened doors of knowledge to him, and each door opened to multitudes of other doors of knowledge. Finally, the Rawi, he says, Rasulullah falls unconscious. Al-Hasan and Al-Hussein, they enter into the room. They collapse, they fall on the legs of their grandfather. This is the same grandfather who will be on the ground acting like a horse, carrying the grandsons on his back. They come jump on their grandfather. Amir al-Mu'mineen, he gets up to stop them from disturbing the grandfather. Rasulullah, he opens his eyes. He says, Da'huma ya Ali. Let them be, O Ali. Da'hum atazawwad bihima wa yatazawwadani bi. Allow them to get solace from me and for me to get solace from them. وَدَعْنِي يَشَمُّهُمَا وَيَشُمَّانِي. Allow them to smell my fragrance and allow me to smell theirs. He said, Oh Ali, don't you know that this one will be fed the poison and he will be shaheed and martyred from it? And Aba Abdullah al-Hussein, he will face the swords in the land of Karbala. Then finally Rasulullah, he says, Aina habibata qalbi wa qurrata aini Fatima. Where is Fatima? Call her for me. They say Fatima al-Zahra, she enters into the room. وأكبت على أبيها وبدأت تبكي وتنوح. She came into the room, she fell on the body of Rasulullah, she wept and cried. She said, Ya Aba, ruhi li ruhika al-fida, wa wajhi li wajhika al-waqa. My father, O Rasulullah, may my soul be sacrificed for your soul. May you always be here with us. Man lana ba'daka ya Aba. Who will be here for us after you leave? Who will take care of us? Rasulullah akhadha biyadi Fatima wa wada'aha fi yadi Ali. Rasulullah took the hand of Fatima, put it in the hand of Ali ibn Abi Talib. ثم قال لعلي يا أبا الحسن وديعة الله ووديعة رسوله عندك فاحفظ الله واحفظني فيها. O Ali, the trust of Allah and the trust of His Rasul, this Fatima is with you, O Ali. So protect Allah's trust and His Rasul's. أعلم يا علي أنها سيدة نساء العالمين. Know, Ali, that this Fatima is the master of the ladies of the world. وأنها مريم الكبرى. She is the greater of the Maryam. لعن الله من ظلمها. لعن الله من ابتزها حقها. لعن الله من هتك حرمتها. Allah curse those who have oppressed her. Allah curse those who have robbed her of her rights, who have violated her sanctity. من عرفها فقد عرفها ومن لم يعرفها فإنها بضعة مني. Whoever knew her, they knew her. They knew her status and her position. But those who don't know her, I will tell you, she is a piece of me. She is my soul.
She is my heart. She is that piece of me that is in my very being. This same Fatima wept and cried for her father until the reports say that he whispered something in her ear that made her weeping and crying to stop. It was not found out until much later on, my dear brothers and sisters, that what was told to Fatima Zahra, that, oh Fatima, take solace in the news that after I die, you will be the first one to be reunited with me. Your stay in this world will not be long. Very soon you will return to Allah and to me. Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا على محمد أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون باسمك العظيم الأعظم الأعز الأجل الأكرم يا الله اللهم إنا نسألك وندعوك ونقسم عليك بحق الزهراء وأبيها وبعلها وبنيها والسر المستودع فيها لعن الله ظالميها اللهم شافي كل مريض اللهم رد كل غريب اللهم فك كل أسير اللهم غير سوء حالنا بحسن حالك يا كريم اللهم وفقنا لمراضيك وجنبنا معاصيك وثبت أقدامنا على صراطك المستقيم وخذ بأيدينا إليك يا أرحم الراحمين وفرج عنا يا الله فرجا عاجلا قريبا كلمح البصر وهو أقرب من ذلك وافرغ علينا صبرا وتوفنا مسلمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين.
Ya Hussein, 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 Hai Zahra تیری تنہائی ہے تنہائی علی کی ہے زہرا تیری تنہائی ہے تنہائی علی کی ہے زہرا تیری تنہائی ہے تنہائی علی کی ہے زہرا تیری تنہائی ہے تنہائی علی کی ہائے غم میں تیرے جاتی رہی ہائے غم میں تیرے جاتی رہی بینائی علی کی تیری تنہائی ہے تنہائی علی کی ہے زہرا تیری تنہائی ہے تنہائی علی کی دربار میں ظالم کے گئی بنت پیمبر کیا وقت تھا کچھ کرنا سکا فاتح خیبر ہائے ہنستے رہے غربت پہ تماشائی علی کی تیری تنہائی ہے تنہائی علی کی ہے زہرا تیری تنہائی ہے تنہائی علی کی ہے زہرا تیری تنہائی ہے تنہائی علی کی پیغام ولایت لیے گھر گھر گئی زہرا شوہر کے لیے ڈھال تھی جب تک رہی زندہ ہائے دنیا کو بتاتی رہی سچائی علی کی تیری تنہائی ہے تنہائی علی کی اے زہرا تیری تنہائی ہے تنہائی علی کی اے زہرا تیری تنہائی ہے تنہائی علی کی کہتے تھے علی زہرا سے کیا حال ہے بی بی اب ہم کو سلام کے بھی کرتا نہیں کوئی آئے ہے باد نبی کیسی پذیرائی علی کی تیری تنہائی ہے تنہائی علی کی اے زہرا تیری تنہائی ہے تنہائی علی کی اے زہرا تیری تنہائی ہے تنہائی علی کی زہرا کی جدائی کو لگائے ہوئے دل سے 25 برس مولا نے چپ چاپ گزارے آئے حجرے میں کل دنیا سمٹ آئی علی کی تیری تنہائی ہے تنہائی علی کی اے زہرا تیری تنہائی ہے تنہائی علی کی اے زہرا تیری تنہائی ہے تنہائی علی کی اس وقت تکلم کو زمانے کا ولی تھا سجاد جو زینب کو لیے شام سے گزرا آئے اسلام کو خاموشی بچا لائی علی کی تیری تنہائی ہے تنہائی علی کی اے زہرا تیری تنہائی ہے تنہائی علی کی اے زہرا یا حسین 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 پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے تربت بھی شکستہ ہے پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے تربت بھی شکستہ ہے پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے تربت بھی شکستہ ہے کیا حال یہ امت نے زہرا کا بنایا ہے پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے تربت بھی شکستہ ہے پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے تربت بھی شکستہ ہے خاتون کوئی غم سے یوں چور نہیں دیکھی ایسی کوئی دنیا میں مستور نہیں دیکھی 18 برس میں ہی لگتی جو ضعیفہ ہے پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے تربت بھی شکستہ ہے پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے تربت بھی شکستہ ہے دربار میں ظالم نے کی ایسی پذیرائی، کس طرح سے تو بی بی پھر لوٹ کے گھر آئی، بالوں کی سفیدی نے سب حال سنایا ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، تربت بھی شکستہ ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، تربت بھی شکستہ ہے، تو روتی رہی گھر میں حیدر سے بھی چھپ چھپ کے، عصمت کی طرح دکھ بھی پردے میں رہے تیرے، کچھ درد تیرے بی بی بس جانتی فضا ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، تربت بھی شکستہ ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، تربت بھی شکستہ ہے، دو ایسے جنازے ہیں تاریخی میں جو اٹھے، بس گھر کی ہی لوگوں نے دونوں کو دیے کاندھے، ایک فاطمہ زہرا ہے، ایک بالی سکینہ ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، تربت بھی شکستہ ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، تربت بھی شکستہ ہے، مرہم تیرے زخموں کا بی بی نہ ملا اب تک، اولاد امیہ کی باقی ہے جفا اب تک، رونے پہ بھی پہرا تھا، تربت پہ بھی پہرا ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، تربت بھی شکستہ ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، تربت بھی شکستہ ہے، مسمار تیرا روزہ امت نے کیا جب سے، بابا تیرا رہتا ہے تربت پہ تیری تب سے، کب غنبد خضرا میں بابا تیرا رہتا ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، تربت بھی شکستہ ہے، پہلو بھی شکستہ ہے، تربت بھی شکستہ ہے، یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین بر محمد و آل محمد صلوات.
No, you're someone whoever does it. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد عبدك ورسولك وحبيبك وصفيك ونبيك وخيرتك من خلقك وحافظ سرك ومبلغ رسالاتك، وعلى علي أمير المؤمنين ووصي رسول رب العالمين، وعلى الصديقة الطاهرة فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين، وعلى سبطي الرحمة وإمامي الهدى الحسن والحسين سيدي شباب أهل الجنة ورحمة الله وبركاته. اللهم وصل على أئمة المسلمين علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر، وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي، وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي، والخلف الهادي المهدي الإمام القائم صاحب العصر والزمان، الأمان 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 من زوال الإيمان وفتن الزمان، عجل الله تعالى فرجه وسهل الله مخرجه، وجعلنا من أنصاره وأعوانه والذابين عنه والمسارعين إليه في قضاء حوائجه والمستشهدين بين يديه جميعا، ورحمة الله وبركاته. صلوات.